Hi there, welcome to this week's Video Weekend Warrior. I'm Mike Watchmaker, National Handicapper for Daily Racing Form. The three stakes races I'm going to talk about this week are the Lexington Stakes, one of the last two points Kentucky Derby preps. Also going to talk about the Oaklawn Handicap and the Ben Ali. The Ben Ali and Lexington will both be run at Keeneland. Let's begin with the Lexington. And certainly the horse that you have to talk about in this race is Another Twist of Fate, who didn't originally want to run in this race, but he's now on the outside looking in when it comes to Derby points. He needs Derby points if he wants to run in the Derby, and his connections want to run him in the Derby, and that's why he's in this race. This was not on his original dance card. And he's certainly good enough to win this race. He showed a lot last time out in his narrow defeat in the Sutherland Derby. He was only beaten a neck in that race. He showed that he could handle dirt. Because he was very impressive winning his prior three starts on the synthetic main track up at Golden Gate. But he was a question on dirt, but he showed he could handle that. And he also showed that he could be effective without having the early lead. He's the horse to beat in here, but it's just not my policy to go with horses in races that they were not originally intended to run in. And that's the case with Another Twist of Fate. His connections are just desperately trying to get him into the Derby. And while he can win it, he's just not for me. Sueno is the horse that I picked. He was my main play in the Louisiana Derby in his last start, and he finished a tired third in that race. But I'm going to go back to him in this spot. And the reason why I'm going back to him is I'm going to forgive him for the Louisiana Derby. I thought he was too close to the early pace that day. He was pressing the early pace, and I think Sueno was at his best when he could stalk a little bit from off the pace. That's what he did two starts back when he ran on the Southwest Stakes at Oaklawn, and he finished a gaining second in that race, narrowly beaten, gaining second. Now, at the time, the Southwest looked like it was a pretty weak prep, but it certainly took on a much better look when third-place finisher Long Range Toddy came back to upset the first division of the Rebel Stakes, beating the very highly regarded Improbable. That's Sueno and the Pink Silks finishing a gaining second. I'm hoping that Sueno will return to his stalking off-the-pace style on Saturday in Lexington. And I also like to cut back a distance for him from the 1.125 of the Louisiana Derby to 1.16 in the Lexington, because it was at 1.16 that he ran so well in the Southwest. So it's Sueno for me in the Lexington. Let's move to Oaklawn, where the forecast is not very good. Thunderstorms are in the forecast. Let's talk about the Oaklawn Handicap. And aside from the weather considerations and off-track ability, to me, a big separating factor in this race is the ability at this 1.125 distance. There are a lot of horses in this race that are unaccomplished at this 9-furlong route, and that includes Looking at Lee. I mean, I know Looking at Lee finished second in the 2017 Kentucky Derby, but he's 0 for 4 going 1.125. He just hasn't won at it, and there are other horses that are really questionable at the route, like Quip. To me, the two horses who are most reliable at this 9-furlong distance are Tenfold and Lone Sailor. And because Lone Sailor is camera shy, he's lost a lot of close decisions that he could have easily won, and I just wonder about his will to win. I'm going with Tenfold. Now, I'll readily admit I wasn't thrilled with Tenfold's first start this year. He finished fourth as the favorite in an allowance race at Fairgrounds, but that was up a better than 6-month layoff, and I can forgive him for that. I do like the fact that he's adding blinkers, and I do like his sharp workout since this race. Tenfold did win the Jim Dandy Stakes last summer at Saratoga going this 1.125 distance, and that's what we're looking at right now. But the race that I think really points him out was his third in the Preakness last year. That, of course, was on a wet racetrack. He didn't have the smoothest of trips. He was beaten less than a length for All the Money. He was narrowly beaten for second by Bravazzo, who would be a heavy favorite in this race if he were not currently injured. And so I'm thinking that Tenfold at this distance, second off the layoff with the blinkers on, is the one who's going to take this Oaklawn Handicap. Let's wrap it up with a look at the Ben Ali back at Keeneland. And Flame Away, I think, is the horse to beat in here, but I think he's vulnerable. He did manage to win the Challenger Stakes last time out in his second start off a 6-month layoff. But the thing of it is he was hard-pressed to beat a horse of Killy Big's Captain, who is a sharp stretch-out sprinter, but who is a complete unknown at that two-turn distance, mile and 16th distance in the Challenger. So I think Flameway, because of that, is a little bit vulnerable, and I'm going with Nonetheless. Now, Nonetheless has won 2 of his last 3 starts, most recently the Kentucky Cup Classic at Turfway Park. And I know that that 2 of the last 3 victories, his other stakes win, 3 back, was also at Turfway Park, were on the synthetic racing surface there. But I think what's interesting is that Nonetheless is by no means a synthetic track specialist. This is a horse that runs equally well on dirt, and he's also fairly effective on turf. He certainly doesn't need to carry his racetrack around with him. And in fact, last fall, he turned in 3 straight races on main tracks at 3 different racetracks that make him very competitive in this spot. He's in career form. I think there are a lot of horses with question marks in this race. I'm just going to take the sharp horse and hoping that because he's moving from synthetic to dirt, that maybe some of the betting public will stay away from him. And I'm taking Nonetheless in the Ben Ali. That's the way it looks for this week's Weekend Warrior. Good luck.